Hi, my name is Gottlieb. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and a certified senior advisor with a private practice in Norwalk, Connecticut. Um, Generally, I see clients in my office. Today, we're here in my home office, um, and we're going to be talking about a topic that is relevant to virtually everyone, which is anxiety. These are short videos that we're making today. So we're going to be boiling down what could be a complicated subject into something um, more basic and useful, I hope. Now, anxiety is a normal condition. Everybody faces anxiety. It is something that is wired into us from millennium past. We have survived this long because we have certain features, some of them less um, less tolerable than others, but they're designed to help us survive. And anxiety, I feel, belongs in that category. Um, there are two kinds of anxiety. You have something that's in front of you right now that you're anxious about, that is a real and present thing in front of you. That generally takes the form of fear. Where I find most anxiety lies is in the form of something that's going to happen, right? You have enough information now to know that you're in some kind of a trouble and it's right around the corner, right? And we call that anticipatory anxiety. And that's where I find most of this lies. And could be simple. Certainly right now, during this time where many people are out of work, the bills come in, and you're sitting there saying, "Well, I don't have the money to pay this," right? So you know that in 30 days, this check's got to be in the mail, and you don't have the money. Now that's anticipatory anxiety. Everybody needs to be looked at as an individual. Sometimes you'll find people that, well, it's like, well, I'll figure it out. It doesn't matter. The money will come from somewhere, right? So you have people who are like that. And you have other people who are like, oh my God, this is a real problem. What am I going to do? Right? So we, as individuals, every one of us has a different baseline, and that has a lot to do with, well, the way we're wired physically, or physiologically, better said, um, and the way we were raised, the patterns of what's normal and what's not normal, that from the people we were around when we were younger, various life experiences. That's what makes any kind of an analysis with anybody so unique, is that every single person is a very unique constellation of behavior, right? So anxiety is something that is wired into us. Like, let's say in a physical standpoint, it would be a good example. Pain, right? Pain is, it's not an emotion; it's a physical reaction, unpleasant as it should be intended to be, because it's there to do something. The question is, what is it there to do? Let's say, for instance, I'm cooking and I accidentally touch a hot pot, um, which I do, and that is designed to cause us to pull our hand away so we don't permanently get injured. If your hand's in the car door and the door slammed on it, I mean, that's a big ouch moment. So this is designed to say, "Ow, that hurt so bad. I got to take action to make sure that doesn't happen again." Or in the case of the hand in the fire or the hot pot, is take your hand out. You see, so you can see how these things are designed to be uncomfortable enough to get our attention. Well, in a psychological sense, anxiety is like that. Certainly in the form of anticipatory anxiety, you know that there's a problem coming up and that you're essentially in some kind of danger. So from an emotional aspect, it's, I have to do something, right? And which is where a positive thing from anxiety comes, which is anxiety happens to be an excellent motivator. Now, some people actually take that anxiety and they become motivated, and some people, they hide, right? So you try to bury the anxiety. You try to divert yourself from the anxiety by some other kind of behavior. You're familiar with this, either in yourself or others, I'm sure. Um, in case in point, when people come in and they might be suffering from whatever kind of disease or malady. Let's say, for instance, that somebody comes in and they're an alcoholic, right? So that is a specific category. Um, but oftentimes you find these things associated. In other words, was somebody so anxious that they started drinking? Or did somebody actually, are they anxious because they've been drinking? So these are the things that professionals sort out, help people sort out all the time to whatever degree that people actually are capable of suffering the truth of what their real life situation is. So for us right now, assuming that anxiety is just uncomfortable and it's not an emergency, most of us live with it on a daily basis. I mean, that's just a normal part of living. We live in a complex world with the average adult who might have a mortgage, relationships, significant relationships, responsibilities. I mean, anxiety is part of, it's there. It's there. Different kinds of viewpoints in our culture say that, well, you shouldn't have to feel anxious, right? So, and then other people are like, well, that's part of being an adult is dealing with anxiety. And once again, this depends on what your point of view is, what um, your philosophical outlook on things is, your training, your professional training, your experience, right? That's another thing that makes every single person different. Um, so we start with a baseline. Also, physiologically, you just see some people just have a very low threshold for any kind of emotional pain, anxiety included, and other people seem to be amazingly tolerant to all kinds of pressure. Um, it's one of the fascinating things for me to see from a sociological standpoint and psychological standpoint to see that the variance of people's responses or tolerance for certain kinds of stress and trauma. So, with motivation resulting from anxiety, then that means anxiety's done its job from the standpoint of the example we used before as far as pain is concerned. If your hand touches a hot pot, you get your hand out of the way. And not only that, but maybe that hurts so badly that you vow to yourself that you're going to be more careful the next time, right? So that I would say that that's a positive outcome. With anxiety, let's take another probably simple example. If you aren't careful with your money management and you're having trouble paying your bills and you're anxious because the bill is due, maybe you'll be more careful next time or make some other kinds of different arrangements or get rid of the thing that the bill was representing because you really didn't need it either. See? So from this standpoint, the anxiety has done its job because it's caused you to change your behavior. The problem with anxiety in a clinical sense is when these things become problems that are now so large that they're the primary factor in front of you, right? So if you are so anxious you can't get out of bed in the morning, if you're so anxious that you can't go to work, you're having trouble with your relationships because you're consumed with anxiety, this is now a clinical problem. So what is to be done here in situations like that? It often helps to just have somebody to talk to, somebody who's a good listener, and that actually is a a rare skill, having somebody who's a good listener. You don't need necessarily a counselor or a doctor here. In many of life situations, you need somebody who is a good listener. So as you organize your thoughts to tell somebody else what you think the issue is, you're going to have to organize it yourself. And sometimes in that organization it gives you more of a sense of control because you understand how the flow chart actually works of the progression of things, and you actually come to your own self-realization that, oh well, wait, maybe there's an answer, or I overreacted, or this really doesn't apply to the point where it should be affecting me like this. In situations like that, you can actually seek help with other people to help you, I don't know, with money management, using the example we had before. Um, if you need further help, if anxiety is overwhelming, well, there are two different categories of professional help you can get. One of them is psychiatry, in which psychiatrists, of course, being medical doctors, can prescribe medication. Now, medication is good to help people with anxiety, depression, etc. Very widely prescribed things. You know, from my own personal standpoint, and this isn't just because I'm not a medical doctor and can't prescribe medicine. From my own personal self, if I could solve a problem intellectually, let's say, I'd rather do it that way than having to take yet another medication, right? Which, generally speaking, has side effects and can cause other complications at times. Now, that brings us to the second kind of professional help, and that is psychotherapy, talk therapy. And in this practice, what happens is that we discuss what it is that the problem came from, where the roots of it might be. Oftentimes, anxiety is something that is transferred into the present from things that have happened in the past, right? So the thing that's in the present that is making us anxious doesn't exist in real time. It's something that is a manifestation of a fear from something that happened in the past, or something that you carried over from your childhood, other experiences. Sometimes people take fears and anxieties from their parents, and they roll them over into their own lives, and they're not aware of it. Now, the job of the psychotherapist is to make the unconscious conscious in that analysis. So there are many things that create anxiety, and to reframe the argument of what somebody is anxious about will, generally speaking, be very effective in giving a person a sense of control. They're doing something about the anxiety. They may not feel as fearful, but every single case is unique. Every single case is unique, and everybody has a different background, set of circumstances, coping abilities, and, yes, desire to get healthy. There are some that, whether it's anxiety or anything else, they've kind of become accustomed to it being the norm. And even though they say that they want to reduce this problem or reduce that problem, actually, they just want to retain their status quo as being anxious, because that's where they feel normal. So there's that. Now, if you have an immediate problem, you should seek emergency assistance. That's 911 if it's a medical emergency. And then many states, like Connecticut where we are, there's 211, various hotlines. And you're not alone. It's good to talk. It's good to have feedback. And in our next lectures, we're going to talk about depression. We're going to talk about other issues of interest. Probably do something about the actual quarantine for coronavirus. Heaven knows that this has been a something that's been very anxiety provoking for people. And once again, I want to thank you for joining me for our short video. I'm Art Gottlieb. Speak to you next time.